class, welcome to Unit 7, Video 3. Today we're going to look at dividing polynomials. Your learning target is that you can divide a polynomial by a polynomial of equal or lesser degree using synthetic division. Before we move into synthetic, we are going to look at how to divide a polynomial by a monomial. The way you do this is you divide each term in the polynomial by the monomial. So one thing I want to talk about first is what is a monomial. It is something that is a single term. So if I look at my denominator of number 1, you see how there's only one piece? This is a monomial. This numerator has 3 terms, so this is a trinomial because there's 3 of them. So when you're dividing by 1, the way you can do this is you can take each term in the polynomial, in the numerator, and divide it by the denominator. So we would have 4x to the third over 4x plus 8x over 4x minus 12x squared over 4x. Then you just need to simplify. 4 over 4 cancels. X to the third over x. We do 3 minus 1 gives me x squared. Plus 8 divided by 4 is 2. X's cancel. Minus 12 divided by 4, which is 3. And then 2 minus 1 gives me 1, so just x. Then if you can, you should put it in standard form, highest degree to lowest. So it'd be x squared, then minus 3x, plus 2. That would be my answer for number 1. If I go ahead and look at number 2, I know it's a monomial because there's only one piece, so I take each term in the numerator and divide it out. So we have 16 a to the 5th b to the 3rd divided by 8 a to the 4th b to the 3rd plus 12 a to the 3rd b to the 4th all over 8 a to the 4th b to the 3rd minus 20a b to the 5th all over 8 a to the 4th, b to the 3rd. Then I just need to simplify. 16 divided by 8 is evenly divisible, so I get 2. Now my a's. A to the 5th over a to the 4th, 5 minus 4 is 1, so just a. My b to the 3rds cancel. Plus, now 12 and 8 are not evenly divisible, but I can divide them both by 4. 12 divided by 4 is 3. 8 divided by 4 is 2, so it's 3 over 2. Now I look at my a's. The 4 is the bigger exponent, and to properly simplify, we can't have negative exponents. So we bring the smaller exponent down to the larger and subtract. So I have a to the 4 minus 3, which gives me a to the 1st. Then my b is, I look at those, 4 is bigger, so now my b will be in the numerator. 4 minus 3 is 1, so it's just b. Now I go ahead and look at my last fraction I have here, so minus 20 and 8, not evenly divisible, but they can both be divided by 4. 20 divided by 4 is 5. 8 divided by 4 is 2. I have a to the 1st and b to the 4th, so 4 is bigger, so it will be in the denominator. 4 minus 1 is 3. Then my b's, my 5 is bigger, so 5 minus 3 is b squared. All right, this one with multiple variables mixed in there, it's hard to put into standard form, so this will work. Example 3. Now would be a good time to just pause it and then try it on your own and then come back and watch to make sure you did it correctly. So first we would take each term and divide it. So just writing out all the work. And then I would say, well, 9 divided by 3 is 3. My x's, 2 is bigger, so 2 minus 1 is 1, so I have x. And then same thing with my y's. 3 minus 2 is 1, so there we have that. 15 divided by 3 is 5. X's cancel, y's cancel. Plus 12 divided by 3 is 4. X's cancels. And then I would have y to the 3rd over y squared, so 3 minus 2 just gives me y. And I'm going to put this in standard form with leaving my constant at the end. And there would be my answer for number 3. Okay. Now that we have done dividing by a monomial, we're going to go ahead and divide by a binomial. Okay, so how to divide by a binomial? We have 2 options. We can use long division, or we can use synthetic division. We're primarily going to focus on synthetic, but I want you to be exposed to long division. So for long division, think old school division. So back in the day, you had to do things like, what is 582 divided by 4? Okay, so this is the old long division of the way you used to divide things out. So if I didn't have a calculator, what I would do is I would write 4, right? And then what I am dividing, I would take and write underneath this little division bar. Then I say, how many times does 4 fit into 5? 4 times what? Well, once, right? So 4 times 1 is 4. And then what do we do every single time? We subtract. So 5 minus 4 is 1. Then we would bring down the 8. Now I say, how many times does 4 fit into 18? Well, 4 times 4 is 16. So I'd have 4 times 4 is 16. Subtract. We always subtract. And I get 2. Bring down the 2. So now we have 22. How many times does 4 fit into 22? Well, it would fit in 5 times. So 4 times 5 is 20. And then we subtract, and I'm left with 2. So in this case, I would have a remainder of 2. So this is one way to write your answer. Probably the more practical way people would write it is 145 and 2 over what we were dividing by, 4, which is 145 and 1/2, or 145.5. So this is long division. So we're going to look at how to do this with a polynomial when we divide by a binomial. Binomial means 2, so 2 terms. So let's look at how to divide long versus synthetic. So here is our long division. We're going to take this polynomial divided by my binomial 2. We set it up the same way as back in the day. We do z minus 4. Then we make the fraction bar, the division bar. And we write out our polynomial. So we have z squared plus 2z minus 24. Then we go ahead and we say, well, z times what gives me z squared? Well, z times z gives me z squared. So I take z times z, which is z squared, and then z times negative 4. I got to do it to both. And I get negative 4z. Then just like old school, we always subtract. The only difference here is that it's a binomial, so we have to do it to both things. So it makes negative, positive. We subtract. So these cancel. I have 2z plus 4z, which gives me 6z. And just like old school, bring down that negative 24. Now we go ahead and repeat the process. We say z times what gives me 6z? Well, z times 6, so plus 6. We take and distribute the 6. So we get 6z. 6 times negative 4 is negative 24. And like before, we would subtract. So minus plus. And these all cancel, and I'm left with the remainder of 0. So my answer would just be, when I take z squared plus 2z minus 24 divided by z minus 4, I get z plus 6. Okay, so there is my example of long division. Now let's go ahead and look at it with synthetic division. The way we do synthetic division then is you take what you are dividing by and you set it equal to 0 to find the roots, or where it's equal to 0. Okay, so we have z minus 4 equals 0, so we take and we get z equals 4. We take our 0 and we put it in a little box off to the side. Okay, then we look at the polynomial and we write out the coefficients. Okay, so what number is in front of my x squared? Well, 1, so I write down 1. What number is in front of z? 2. Then I write down my constant of negative 24. Then I leave some space and draw a line. I'm all set up to go ahead and do synthetic division. Here's how synthetic division works. You take this first term and you always bring it down. We write down 1. Then you would take whatever's in the box times this number. So 4 times 1 gives you 4. Then you add. 2 plus 4 is 6. Then you multiply again. So it's adding, multiplying, adding, multiplying. Okay, so 4 times 6 is 24. We go ahead and add. Negative 24 plus 24 is 0. Now I'm done. I need to write out my answer. The way the answer works is whatever is at the end is our remainder. This would be our constant, so a number without a variable, and then it would be z. If there was more, it'd be z squared, z to the third, and we'll look at that in a minute. So the way I write my answer is 1z, which is just z, plus 6. Well, is that what I got for the same problem before? Z plus 6? Yes, it is. So they are the same. Both the methods work wonderfully. It's preference and efficiency, which synthetic is probably a little bit quicker. So that's why we use synthetic a majority of the time. So that's why we're going to focus in on synthetic today. So let's look at some more practice problems. We have example 4. Example 4, when I look at it, I have x to the third this time, and then I have x. So the first thing you need to be careful of is make sure it has all the terms. So we are missing an x squared. So what I would do is say there's really plus 0x squared. I need to put in a 0 for a placeholder when I write out my for synthetic division. So I have 3, 2, 1, my constant. So we are good. Now let's go ahead and start setting it up. I take x plus 4 and find my 0. So x plus 4 equals 0. So x equals negative 4. So I write negative 4. Now I write down all my terms, my coefficients, for my polynomial. So I would have 2, 0, 6, 152. Leave some space. There it is. Now I go ahead, start out, bring down the 2. Negative 4 times 2, negative 8. What did we do before? We added, so 0 plus negative 8 is negative 8. Multiply negative 4 times negative 8. That gives us 32. Then we add again. 6 plus 32 is 38. Negative 4 times 38 is negative 152. Add those together and I get 0. Now I can go ahead and write my answer. It is the remainder of 0, so we're happy when it's a remainder of 0, right? Then it would be constant x squared. So my answer for this one would be 2x squared minus 8x plus 38. So when I divide this polynomial by x plus 4, this is what I would have left. Okay. Then let's look at example 5. Okay, example 4 was different because we were missing that x squared term. Example 5 is different because we have this 2 in front of our x here. So if there's ever a number in front of the binomial, you have to divide everybody by that number. So this is a 2, so I'm going to divide everybody by 2. Okay, and I'm going to simplify. So I would have 2 over 2 gives me just x to the third, 1, right? Plus, it's 5 over 2x squared minus x, these cancel, and minus 15 over 2 divided by, those cancel, so x minus 3 over 2. Now I can go ahead and do what I did before. I need to find my 0. So I have x minus 3 over 2 equal to 0. So add 3 over 2 to the other side, and so x is equal to 3 over 2. So I write 3 over 2 in my box. Then I do my coefficients. So we have 1, 5 over 2, negative 1, negative 15 over 2. Now I go ahead, bring down that first term, 1. 3 over 2 times 1 is easy, 3 over 2. I'm adding fractions. When you add fractions, as long as the denominator is the same, you can add the numerators, which in this case it is. 5 plus 3 is 8 over 2, which is 4. Let's say you don't feel comfortable with that. You get out your calculator. You do 5 divided by 2 plus 3 divided by 2. Hit enter. And you get 4. Then we do 3 over 2 times 4. So if you don't feel comfortable with that, you can do it on your calculator. I'll show you in a second. But you would do 3 times 4, which is 12. 12 divided by 2 is 6. So we go ahead and do it on here. We had 4, and we had to take it times 3 divided by 2. Once again, gets me 6. And then I'm going to go ahead and take negative 1 plus 6, which gives me 5. Then I would take 3 over 2 times 5. 3 times 5 is 15, so it's 15 over 2. I see these are exactly the same, so they will cancel, so I'm left with 0. But same thing, if you didn't know, you could take 5 times 3 divided by 2 on your calculator. And you're probably going to get a decimal, which is fine. But if the fractions I think are nicer. You can go math, frac, which is number 1. Hit enter. And there it is, 15 over 2. And that's what I wrote down here. Now that I've done this, I can go ahead and write out my answer. Remainder, constant, we're using x, so x and x squared. So my answer this time is x squared plus 4x plus 5. There is my answer for number 5. Okay. One thing I do want to point out is if there was a remainder, because we divided everybody by 2 in the very beginning, you'd have to take your remainder times 2. Well, 0 times 2 is 0. So my remainder is still 0, but if you ever did have a remainder and you had to divide in the beginning, you have to multiply by that in the end. Okay. So moving on to 6. I take a look at 6, and I see that there is a 2 in front, so I need to divide everybody by 2. The other thing I'm looking for is I got 4, 3. There's not a 3, so we have to have plus 0, x to the third. So I have 4, 3, 2, 1. So we're good there. Now I can divide everybody by 2. So divide by 2, divide by 2. So let's write out what we have. We would have 4 divided by 2, which is 2, x to the fourth, plus 0 divided by 2 is 0, so 0x to the third, minus 17 over 2 isn't nice. You could write it as a decimal if you want. I prefer fractions. 14 divided by 2 is 7, minus 3 over 2, divided by x minus 3 over 2. We go ahead, take this, set it equal to 0 to find the 0, and we get x is equal to 3 over 2. That's a 2. So we have 3 over 2. Now we go ahead. We have 2, 0, negative 17 over 2, 7, negative 3 over 2. And we start our division. I'm going to go through this quick, but if you needed to, you could get out your calculator and do all the fractions on there. So you bring down the 2. Okay? We have 3 times 2, which is 6, divided by 2 gives me 3. Then I add. I get 0 plus 3 is 3. Then I would do 3 times 3 is 9 over 2. Not super nice, so I'll just write 9 over 2. Negative 17 plus 9 is, negative 17 plus 9, 8 over 2. Negative 8 over 2, which give me negative 4. Then I would do 3 times negative 4, which is negative 12 over 2, which gives me negative 6. 7 minus 6 is 1. This gives me positive 3 over 2. This gives me 0. So then I go ahead and I write out my answer, remainder, constant, x, x squared, x to the third. So my answer would be 2x to the third plus 3x squared minus 4x plus 1. Once again, my remainder was 0, but if it wasn't, I would have to take it times 2 in order to get my true remainder. That is example 6. Example 7. I look at this. We got 3, 2, 1 constant, so we're good. But this has a 3 in front, so I must divide everybody by 3. I'm gonna skip writing it all out. I think we're okay if I just put it into synthetic. So this is really x plus 1/3, and we set it equal to 0. So x is equal to negative 1/3. So I have negative 1/3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. 5 divided by 3, we leave us 5 over 3. This is going to be negative 2 over 3, and then I would have 1/3. Now I can synthetically divide. I bring down the 2. I have 2 times negative 1/3, negative 2 over 3. 5 minus 2 is 3. 3 over 3 is 1. Negative 1/3. Negative 2 minus 1 is negative 3. Negative 3 over 3 is negative 1. Positive 1/3. 1/3 plus 1/3. 1 plus 1 is 2/3. So this one has a remainder. So now that I have a remainder, I would have to take it times what we divided by, times 3. These cancel. So my remainder is 2. Okay. So this is my remainder. This is my constant. This is my x. This is my x squared. So there isn't a lot that we work with that have remainders, but I want you to see what it would look like. So my final answer, we write all this out normal, 2x squared plus x minus 1, plus we take our remainder and put it over what we divided by, just like in old school. So 3x plus 1. So there is my final answer with the remainder. Okay, so that is synthetic division. Now we need to go ahead and do one last problem. It is a little word problem. We have the area of a rectangle is 3x squared minus 19x plus 20 square feet. The length of the rectangle is 3x minus 4. What is the width of a rectangle? Okay, well, I have the three things I'm working with: area, length, width of a rectangle. Well, we know the area of a rectangle is length times width. If I want to solve for the width, how do I get W by itself? I would divide by L. So my width is equal to area over my length. Okay, so let's write this out. My area is 3x squared minus 19x plus 20 all over my length, 3x minus 4. So I need to take my polynomial and divide it by a binomial. Okay, two ways I could do it. I could use factoring, which we have done plenty of. You could factor the numerator and see if they would cancel. The other option is to use synthetic division. So we're going to do synthetic. Set up a little differently, just looks different, but my x has a 3 in front, so I need to divide everybody by 3. So I really have, to find my 0, x minus 4 over 3 equals 0, so x is equal to 4 over 3. So I put 4 over 3 in the box. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 19 divided by 3 is not nice, so negative 19 over 3. And 20 divided by 3 is not doesn't divide evenly, so we're going to leave it as a fraction. Now we go ahead, take the 1, bring it down. 4/3 times 1 is 4/3. Negative 19 plus 4 is negative 15. Negative 15 divided by 3 is negative 5. 4 times negative 5 is negative 20 over 3. So 0, so we have no remainder, which is nice. So this is my remainder, this is my constant, and we are dealing with the variable x. So my width, when I do the division, is x minus 5, and this is in feet. Okay, so that would be example number 8. Okay, if you have any questions, please be sure to come and ask me. Otherwise, that is it for Unit 7, Video 3. Have a great day.